Бүгүнкү казак прозасында
In modern Kazakh prose, I give a special place to the writer Tolen Abdikov.
ерекше атап
His works are distinguished by a deep ideological and thematic content. They have some interesting characters, fully consistent with modern life.
өткерлермен де
The topic of our conversation today is his The Right Hand story.
оң кол әңгімесі.
Maqbal Musa is a poet, member of the Union of Writers and Journalists of Kazakhstan. She is the winner of Jantsugurov and Makataev Republican contests. Apart from this, she won the first prize of the Republican Altyn Tobulghi contest, organized by the foundation of Kazakhstan's first president. Also, Maqbal is a winner of 100 New Faces of Kazakhstan project. Tolen Abdikov can be called a researcher of the human soul. His works always discover a whole new layer of philosophical and psychological revelations. Abdikov's writings are full of deep meaning, and his characters often initiate some kind of a dialogue with society. The author places them in different situations, testing them for strength, cultivating both grains of doubt and self-confidence in them. They live in the eternal search for truth, same as their author. The writer's stories force us to look for our own reflections in the images of characters, as well as to seek for a hidden meaning in his works.
Ерекше.
Tolen Abdikov is a writer and playwright who was born in 1942 in the Kostanay region, honored work of the Republic of Kazakhstan, laureate of the State Prize, the author of several collections of short stories, Horizon, Autumn Leaves, Truth, and Spoken Truth, and others. His works were translated into Russian, Ukrainian, Uzbek, and Kyrgyz languages. For the Reasoning of Blazing War novel, he received the Pen Club Prize and became the laureate of the Franz Kafka Prize. In 2013, by a decree of the president of the country, he was awarded the highest state award, the Order of Parasat, for his outstanding literary services.
Әдебиет алаңында жазушылар мен ақындардың
In literary
арасында
society, there is a funny saying, popular among writers and poets. They say that those writers who start with poetry and then continue with writing prose are called immature in poetry by poets, and writers in turn call poets immature in writing. They call them children. So, Tolen Abdikov also began his literary journey with poetry. He spoke about this in one of his interviews.
ол туралы бір сұхбатында айтқаны бар.
Tolen Agha was in his 4th year of institute when his first story was included in the Young Writers of Kazakhstan collection. The compiler of the collection was the famous critic Zainullah Sirikaliyev. He invited Tolen to his place and said, "Your work was included in the collection. Now you have no moral right not to write." The young writer was very surprised, since he did not send his story to any publishers. It turned out that it was Abishki Kilbayev himself who read his story in the Leninshil Zhas newspaper and proposed it for publication. In those years, Tolen was fond of poetry. He hesitated between two genres and didn't dare to choose, poetry or prose. Meanwhile, he once brought his collection of poems to Muzaffar Alimbayev at the Writers' Union. Muzaffar has even given his word to offer these poems for publication in the Kazakh literature newspaper. But since Abdikov's prose in the collection was published before his poems were published in the newspaper, Tolen embarked on a writer's path. That is, how he became a writer, not a poet. Today, young talented writers and poets can become famous by publishing their writings on various literary resources. Among them, the Adabiyat portal appears to be one of the most famous and popular. Here one can find works of different genres, books, audiobooks, translations. There are various competitions that allow you to identify the best and most talented among young people. Also, annually, under the auspices of the Writers' Union, a series of poetry and prose entitled The Young Wave is published, in which the works of aspiring writers and poets are printed. And if we talk about publishing, then there is a literary magazine, Urker, that promotes young and aspiring writers. And there are Juldis and Kazakh literature magazines, which have a long history and are still in great demand. For young people, it's a special honor to be published in these publications.
негізі адам жаны күрделі әлем.
Generally speaking, the human soul is an unknown world. Probably you have read the writer's The Reasoning of Blazing War. It describes the split of the human soul, a war between the reason and feelings, the torment of the character, an outsider ready for suicide, cannot help but cause this ambiguity. The main character ultimately decides to commit suicide, and the reader has to determine for himself what can be considered a shadow and what can be considered a light in the human soul. It seems to me that the idea of the work has first appeared in the right-hand story, and it's no coincidence that this story to some extent determined the further literary fate of the author and made him famous.
Әдеби ортада танылуына себепкер болған екен.
Why is life never as I want it to be? I was cured from such a categorical approach to life by the right-hand story. Undoubtedly, Tolen Abdikov is a talent that is being revealed with all clarity, and only stupid people cannot recognize talent.
Енді
Let us look at the writing itself. It's a first-person narration. The young doctor tells us the story of his life, about the events that he has personally experienced, about how he started practicing in a psychiatric clinic, studied patients, watched their actions, tried to analyze and understand them.
әңгіме айтылады.
The
Әдетте
condition of sick people who have experienced mental stress is understandable, and it's possible to treat them. It's much more difficult with those who are sick more seriously. They, as a rule, live in their closed imaginary world. The doctor begins to speculate about this phenomena.
ой талқысына салады. Әңгімеде жас дәрігердің назарына
Thus, a young patient named Alma enters the doctor's field of vision. The
шығарманың
right-hand story begins with a description of the meeting with her.
оқиғадан басталады. Наурыз айының
At the
аяғында
end of March, a young girl of about 17 was admitted. During the appointment, the girl's parents talked about the fact that she repeatedly made suicide attempts, trying to strangle herself. Thanks to her relatives, she managed to survive. And the girl pointing to her right hand spoke about it in a completely different way. It's not me. This hand wants to kill me. It's not mine. It's someone else's. It wants to kill me.
бізде мұны ішкі
We call this behavior personality split. This is one of the types of psychopathology when a patient has a problem with a second personality allegedly living inside of him and therefore with a perception of reality.
бір қызығы жас режиссер Жәнібек
As a matter of fact, it was on this story that the young director Jibek based his 30-minute-long short film and defended his thesis at the Jurgenov Academy of Arts.
дипломдық жұмысын қорғаған екен.
The film was made in the genre of psychological drama, and at the same time, the director managed to bring his own artistic design into it, adding his vision to the plot, which Abdikov liked. For example, in the story, there is a character, the mother of a sick girl, and in the film, the director replaced her with a girl's father. It's no coincidence that a book called Father appears in the doctor's hands at some point in the film. The right hand in the story is a symbol of human visions, a search for oneself while suffering from a personality split. The doctor, amazed by this, begins to observe the girl who became a victim of such a difficult test of fate.
болды қасыңнан қорықпа қасыңнан қазір басылады
Алма ұйқыға
Every time Alma falls asleep, her right hand is trying to strangle her. In medicine, this case is known as a severe mental and genetic disease, but the writer speaks of it as if there is someone living inside the character for real.
біліп отыр. Көптеген шығарма
Many works of art describe cases when a person tries to commit suicide due to mental torment and life failures. And in Alma's life, her right hand is the truth of her life and her misfortune. And if you only think about how much damage was done with his hands when a person did not even realize what evil he was causing and how sinful he was, Alma seemed to fall into the net of the devil who made her insane.
қауқарсыз қыз. Жас дәрігер Алманың бойындағы
The doctor wanted to understand why life has punished this beautiful girl and put her to the ordeal, so he began to carefully observe the patient.
жақын
He started to like her more and more. He became attracted to her. He wanted to be with her, to talk with her for a long time.
қыз арман
Once the girl told him about her dream. She wanted to break out of the small room and take a walk outside.
жігіт тәуекелге
The young man could not refuse the girl, and violating medical ethics brought her outside.
көшеге алып шығады.
Жауратқан күн мұңды неткен қоңыр салқын көзге тербетілген ақ қайыңның жапырағын үзді арманымның айдынында егіз аққу жүзді ғашықтарға қатал тағдыр айырмасын бізді жібегім бол тілегім сол ізгі
Бұл күн қыз
This day was the happiest for the girl. She literally blossomed.
ол сезім
She enjoyed the freedom and company of a man in whom she found reliable support.
еркін жүрді. Қол ұстасып
They walked hand in hand and thought of nothing. In the evening, they returned back to the hospital.
қайта оралды.
When I was reading the episode with the walk, I had a feeling that now everything is going to be fine, that everything will change for the better. The doctor became stronger in his desire to save Alma at all costs. He decided that if the girl's right hand was cut off, the disease would disappear. With this proposal, he turned to the management of the clinic. It seemed to the young specialist, who on the one hand was fulfilling his professional duty, and on the other, acting at the behest of the heart, that he found a solution. Now he was sure that the whole problem was only in the girl's right hand, and all her further life depends on him.
Жазушы
The writer managed to subtly convey the story of the relationship between the doctor and the patient, their growing feelings.
суреттейді. Түндерде қыз ұйқысы
Once, Alma convinced her friend who was tired, guarding her at night, to leave her. Nothing will happen to me.
сендіреді. Амал не?
He believed her and went to rest.
Есінде қыз
The next morning, the girl was gone.
ажал.
Her right hand strangled her.
Адам өмірінің
Human life is full of suspense.
ақыл
Fate can never be predicted for sure.
сағыр жолы. Меніңше 17 жас
In my opinion, Alma was really happy during the spring walk. Sometimes we wait for happiness for a long time. We seek it,
кейде
we
біз
do not find it, and we seek it again.
күтеміз. Осылайша
And it seems to us that this is always going to be like this.
қайталана береді.
Often, we get tired of the search for happiness. And Alma's fate seemed to show us. Here it is. Happiness is here. Take it until it withers like a plucked flower. And the question is not at all whether this story happened for real or not. It's to make everyone believe in its reality. This is the essence of the work. The story about the girl's right hand that killed her is deeply symbolic. In life, evil is a self-destructive force that destroys, first of all, the person himself and the world around him. The author talks about this, that with the distraction of a man, society is also destroyed.
Бұл дастархан басындағы
It was a
дәрігер
table conversation between the doctor and the writer. Such stories make you think, make you draw your own conclusions. The right hand is a work about life and death, about the struggle between good and evil, black and white. The author, having listened to the doctor's story, suddenly said, "Now I am apprehensively looking at my right hand, in which I am holding the knife."
шынында да бұл әңгімені оқып болған соң
Indeed, after reading the story, you also look at your right hand differently.
ізгілік
In the endless struggle between good and evil, love and honesty must prevail. The author does not say this directly. The reader himself has to make this conclusion. Today we talked about the works of Tolen Abdikov, about his writing skills, by which he conveys important things to us: philanthropy, humanity, compassion. And to get a deep understanding of this wonderful writer, please do read his The Reasoning of Blazing War book.